From the Associated Press, this is an Election Night 2025 update. Live from Washington, here is Meg Kennard.
This is a breaking alert that has just moved on the AP wire. The Associated Press has determined that Democrat Zoran Mamdani has been elected as mayor of New York City. The 34-year-old and his campaign has come to symbolize the more youthful and progressive wing of the Democratic Party. Joining me to talk about this race is Zohran Mamdani. Sagar, so again, this is the big race that we've been watching all night. We've been watching the live video coming in all night from people gathering. But now that we have this race call and AP has declared Mamdani as the winner in New York City, what can we see there and how do we think that this really is couched in tonight's overall results?
Yeah, this was really a generational and ideological race. Here you have Mamdani at 34, who will now become New York's youngest mayor in more than 100 years, against Andrew Cuomo, the once disgraced governor who claimed he was ready to do this from day one. Obviously a knock at the younger Mamdani, who describes himself as a socialist, a democratic socialist. This now plays into a lot of thinking that Democrats really do need to embrace that wing of the party to make themselves more relevant. But then when you look at the two governor's races that have been decided in Virginia and in New Jersey, both of the winners there ran as more centrist Democrats. So it's a really interesting dichotomy now for the party, where you've scored these three big wins going in two totally opposite directions. But Mamdani's campaign, you know, a young guy, very digitally savvy. It was entirely focused on how expensive it is to live there. And he put out some ideas about how to make things cheaper. That electrified a lot of folks, that turned off a lot of folks. It infuriated President Trump, who threatened to arrest and deport him. He was born in Uganda. He is an American citizen, so you can't just arrest and deport him. But that was the kind of rhetoric that we heard. And you know, New York is the nation's biggest city. It's always going to get attention. This race just took on a life of its own. And you know, no one had heard of Zoran Mamdani a year ago. 33-year-old state lawmaker has now been elected the mayor of America's biggest city. A stunning ascent for him there.
Absolutely, and I want to talk in just a minute about some of the contrasts with the other major contests that we've been tracking tonight, which Democrats have also been declared winners in. But if you are just joining us, just an update on where we are on this election night. The Associated Press has determined that Democrat Zoran Mamdani is the winner of the New York City mayoral race. Again, that is the major contest that we are watching tonight. As Sagar just noted, it is America's biggest city and is really one that has drawn attention, not just from journalists and politically interested people here in the United States, but also globally, given the position that New York City has, economically speaking, culturally speaking, as well as politics, the former home of current President Donald Trump, who often weighs in on circumstances that are happening there in New York City, although he now is currently in the White House and technically a resident of Florida. Also, just a reminder of what you're seeing on your screen. On the left-hand side, we have a live image from Democrat Mikey Sherrill's campaign headquarters for tonight. The Associated Press has declared her the victor in the New Jersey governor's race. On the right-hand side of your screen, live images continuing to come in from New York City. The upper right-hand side is Zoran Mamdani's campaign headquarters, and below that, the campaign rally site for Andrew Cuomo. If any of these candidates come out to make live remarks, we will break into anything that we are saying, and we will be bringing you those comments live as they happen. So, Sagar, just to talk a little bit more about the New York City mayor's race, which again, the AP has declared the winner of that contest to be Democrat Zoran Mamdani. When we talk about Mamdani's campaign being, he describes himself as a democratic socialist, and a lot of the policies and ideas that he's proposed for New York City have tended toward that side of the political spectrum. That is very different than what we have heard from the winners in the other two top contests we've been following, those gubernatorial races in Virginia and New Jersey. So can we read anything into writ large how Democrats are feeling if we're hearing from these more centrist Democrats winning these governor's races, but yet the further left candidate winning in New York City? Or is it just New York City is its own animal, its own space? We should not really try to compare apples to oranges. So
I think you can see that both ways, and it's an interesting debate now that the Democrats will have to have. They came into tonight, again, still licking wounds from a year ago. They lost the White House, they lost the Senate, they lost the House. They've made themselves relevant again. The three big elections we've been talking about tonight, they swept them. They won all three, but again, with two diametrically different approaches. So what does the party do? Does this, further embolden that progressive wing, like Mamdani, like AOC, Bernie Sanders, folks like that?
Both of whom we saw campaigning with him.
Exactly.
Right.
Both of whom were on the campaign trail with him. Or you have the more centrist, more moderate ones who worry that some of the policies that Mamdani put out about raising taxes on the rich, about making city buses free, about making free child care, things like that, they worry that as they try to broaden the party's appeal to a bigger swath of America, if the focus is on that kind of thing that some even Democrats will say is way too far left, where does that leave you going into the midterm? So I think they have to be feeling good about all three, but now the party elders will have to have that debate. Both of those approaches worked. Which one works better 364 days from now when they try to take the House back?
It's that constant conversation about candidate quality that we've already seen. I've seen it tonight on social media already starting to happen for the midterms. So we will keep an eye on that. Thank you so much for walking us through all of that stuff. We are now, though, going to go back to New York City, where we have Philip Crowther joining us again live from Zoran Mamdani's campaign night headquarters. Philip, what can you tell us about what's happening there? What are you hearing from people as they celebrate this win for Mamdani?
Yeah, you won't be surprised to hear that it's very much a party atmosphere here now. We're in downtown Brooklyn at the Paramount Theater, and I can actually see people only just walking in. They were kept outside, standing in line for quite a long time. So some of the people who are entering now to celebrate this victory of Zoran Mamdani to become the next mayor of New York City, they are getting the news as they walk into the theater here. Of course, we're seeing a lot of people celebrating right now. Not necessarily surprised, of course, because Zoran Mamdani was very much the front runner in most of the polls ahead of today's election day here. It's also worth mentioning that a really large amount of New York City voters went out to vote in the end. In fact, the highest number of voters for a New York City mayoral election in 30 years this time around. Very much a race that captured the imagination of New Yorkers, and that also got a lot of interest from the national media, from the international media. Very much a story that is being followed throughout the world, this one. A lot of journalists here, of course, and among them is Tara Palmieri. She's the host of the Tara Palmieri Show on YouTube. Thank you very much for joining us again, Tara.
Thanks for having me.
Now, it's time for us now to digest this news now. It's not a surprise that Zoran Mamdani is now projected to become the next mayor of New York City. But what is your initial reaction? Does it take you back a few months to that moment when it looked like it was very improbable that he could become mayor of this city?
I mean, it was such a dramatic upset. That primary, he beat Andrew Cuomo by 13 points. And I think that really rocked the Democratic establishment. And they've all been bracing for this moment right now. And what they want to see is how decisive that win ends up being as it shakes out. Right now, he's about 10 points ahead of Andrew Cuomo, but he wants to go into this mandate with over 50%. And he wants to show overwhelming support when he pushes for these really progressive programs. When he goes to Albany, state capital, and he asks to help him fund, universal child care, universal free busing. I mean, he said that he wants to raise taxes on the wealthy and corporations. He can't do that. It's the governor, Kathy Hochul. There are city-run grocery stores. There are a number of things that he really wants to do, but he needs to have that political mandate to do that. And so while everyone is so excited here, I mean, what he represents, 34-year-old, Muslim, South Asian, New Yorker, literally started the race at 0%, whereas Andrew Cuomo started as a former governor, son of a former governor, former HUD, official in the Clinton administration, entitled, I would say, but dynasty. And for a very long time the presumed frontrunner. He had the donors behind him, he had the real estate community, and to see Zohran Mamdani not only beat him, but overwhelmingly by what looks like it may be double digits, we'll have to say, and keep close eye. And again, it's called so quickly, within an hour of the polls closing. It's really telling, and I think it reflects a moment right now in the Democratic Party where the base is overwhelmingly rejecting the establishment. Andrew Cuomo represents the Democratic establishment. He was the candidate picked by the establishment. And we have, the establishment players. Chuck Schumer, the Senate Minority Leader, has not endorsed. Hakeem Jeffries, the Minority Leader, has quietly endorsed. And then, Kathy Hochul is the governor and knows that her re-election in a year will depend very much on winning the support of the city. She's endorsed, but she's a center-left Democrat. And I think there are just a lot of questions about what this progressive populist movement, as Mamdani calls it, democratic socialism, which a lot of people are still wrapping their heads around. What does that even mean, right? What does that mean for the party? Can that exist in New York City and Ohio? How does the party separate itself in the midterm elections in a year from now? Is he just going to become the poster boy for the Democratic Party that the Republicans will use as a foil? Will President Trump target him in his, in his ICE initiatives and his anti-immigration initiatives? Then there are the clashes over Israel, and there's just so much tension. There's going to be so much clashes to come. This is going to be an administration to watch. A lot of his progressive policies are not that different than Bill de Blasio's, but he has so forward about what he represents, and he's got big dreams and a big agenda, and we'll see if he's able to do it.
As we stand here, we expect the next thing to happen here, of course, is for Zoran Mamdani, the projected next mayor of New York City, to actually take the stage and give what is going to be his victory speech. Now, for his supporters, who are, some of them still coming into this theater here, and who are celebrating now, what is maybe the first thing that they want their new mayor, who will be inaugurated in January, what is the first thing that they want to see him do out of all those promises he's made, out of all the things that maybe you might consider unrealistic, and that certainly a Republican president might consider unrealistic? Free buses, free childcare. Which one of those is the absolute priority for his voters, do you think?
I forgot to mention rent freezes. And I think a lot of people would agree with Jimmy McMillan, the former mayoral and presidential candidate. The rent is too damn high in New York City. It is astonishingly high. And I would say probably this audience, a lot of people in their 20s, 30s, strivers, making their way, would probably agree with that sentiment, right? They're not likely to be, the Wall Street hedge fund types, dynasty families that can afford to live in a New York City that seems to be increasingly only made for them. So he's got some hurdles because the real estate board decides if you can freeze rent-stabilized apartments. Eric Adams could stack the board in the favor of keeping it exactly the way it is right now, but in a few years he'll be able to choose his own board. So we might have to wait for that for a few, years. I think he's very close to already universal childcare because Bill de Blasio started with pre-K, universal pre-K, 3K in a lot of places. I don't think he's very far away. By the way, I see AOC up there. She is in the balcony,
there we go, yeah.
In the VIP section.
AOC being Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez of New York. She's right up there.
One. So I saw Cynthia Nixon earlier. She's another populist, progressive star in the party, right behind us over there, Hassan Piker. But yeah, I think there's the universal busing. I mean, it costs about $800 million a year, but in a $20 billion per year budget, it's not like that much money, Some have pointed out that they've been able to give subsidies to Elon Musk bigger than that, so maybe there's some private-public partnerships. I think he's certainly going to need to build some inroads with the police community. I mean, there's no doubt that his rhetoric on defund the police is going to be an issue. They have literal veto power over a mayor. It is extremely strong force for him, and He apologized on Fox News for his prior comments. He's going to have to, I think he's going to have to continue to address that. And keeping Jessica Tisch, the current police commissioner, on, I think is a really good first step to show that he respects the force and the moderation that they want. And I think there's, he really can't raise taxes on the wealthy without the governor. I don't think she'll do it in an election year. Raising taxes on corporations, again, I don't think he'll do that. But I think it's all the things that people really want to hear, and it's a testing ground. And it's certainly, listen, for a party that was polling at 27% approval rating, the Democratic Party, pretty amazing to see all these people out here celebrating the Democratic Party. A pretty astonishing sweep tonight.
The presence of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the congresswoman from New York, brings us to that debate that is going to be happening inside the Democratic Party, undoubtedly starting right now, and already started before this victory for Zoran Mamdani in the mayoral election in New York City. Is where is this party going? Because at the same time that a democratic socialist, who is not afraid to call himself that, wins here in New York City, you have two Democratic candidates for governor winning in New Jersey and Virginia, who are very much seen as centrist and moderate. So where is the Democratic Party going? Is it going in both directions at the same time?
Absolutely. I mean, Mikey Sherrill, Abigail Spanberger, both former congresswomen who rode in on a blue wave as Blue Dog Democrats. They rode in as Blue Dog Democrats. Abigail Spanberger said she doesn't even want the word socialism associated with the party. She won in Virginia. Mikey Sherrill had a tough race against a Republican candidate. They're going to have to try to prove that they are a big tent party. They need to activate the base, but this is a base of voters that, frankly, I think his populist messaging around affordability was very similar to President Trump's. President Trump said, "I'm going to lower the cost of goods." So did Mamdani. The populist message seems to be ringing true on both sides. And that's why when I hear Republicans giddy, excited about Zoran Mamdani being their new foil, their new boogeyman, I think to myself, you listen to his messaging, there's overlap with Trump. In the same way that there was always an overlap between the Bernie voter and the Trump voter, populism can have different labels. Socialism, MAGA, but, the people know what they want, and they want affordability right now in a time of high inflation and costs through the roof.
Well, we'll have plenty more to digest when it comes to the results of this mayoral election here in New York City, but also the results from the governor's races in Virginia and in New Jersey. Tara Palmieri from the Tara Palmieri Show on YouTube, thank you very much for joining us, and we'll be talking again a little bit later. What we're expecting now, of course, is the next logical step. That is the presence of Zoran Mamdani, still the 34-year-old member of the New York City Assembly, who has just been elected mayor of New York City. He is, of course, now expected to take the stage that you can see behind me. His supporters now here present in their, well, at least hundreds, possibly a few thousand. We expect them to listen to his victory speech pretty soon indeed, and we'll, of course, bring that to you live.
Thank you, Philip, for those updates from the ground there at Zoran Mamdani's election night rally. We will certainly be keeping our eye on the video. And for those of you following along with us, as soon as Mamdani takes the stage to make his remarks, we will be bringing those to you live. So make sure to keep an eye on the 4 boxes that you see on your screen. Mamdani, and then also we were awaiting comments from Mikey Sherrill, recently declared the winner of the New Jersey governor's race. So we will also bring you those comments if we see them, but also Mamdani, awaiting him, expecting him to speak to supporters relatively soon. On your screen, we'll be leaving you with images coming into us from Denver, where votes in that state of Colorado are being counted this evening. We will bring you any news and updated AP race calls as we get them. But for now, we will return you to these live images. Thank you. See you soon.
She listens to people, she includes them, and she leads with both her head and her heart. And no one gets left behind. So I think this outstanding victory tonight is a great affirmation of a positive direction we're headed in this country. And I don't think that we can rest easy, but I will say I will rest easier tonight knowing Mikey is at the helm. All right, New Jersey, so let's get excited, let's get inspired, and let's get loud. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the next governor of the great state of New Jersey, Mikey Sherrill.
But man, with this vote, you guys just screamed from the rooftops. And people around the country have heard you. I hear you too. This was a tough fight, and this is a tough state. But I know you, New Jersey, and I love you. I've fought for you. I've spoken with thousands of you over this last year. I know your struggles. I know your hopes. I know your dreams. So serving you is worth any tough fight I have to take on, and I am incredibly honored to be your next governor. When I was 18, I raised my hand and I swore to defend the Constitution. And that moment defines me. It taught me that leadership means carrying the weight of other people's hopes, standing firm when it's easier to bend, and always putting the common good above personal gain. And I know how hard it can be to serve in these times. And I just got a call from Jack Chitterelli, and I want to recognize him for stepping up. And all of you know, I love our history, and our state motto has always stuck with me. In 1777, New Jersey was one of the first states to choose a motto. Anybody? Liberty and prosperity. I'm going to get some more civics education going. We'll get that known by all. But it was a demand for freedom from oppression and a commitment to creating better opportunity and a better future. That idea has defined us for almost 250 years. We fought for liberty at the crossroads of the American Revolution, turning the tide for our young nation at the battles of Trenton and Princeton. We offered prosperity as we built the nation during the Industrial Revolution. We've been the cradle of scientific discovery, inventing everything from the light bulb to the laser. Liberty and prosperity. I've seen the genius in that motto over the last year because both are essential in our democracy. And as the president is backing away from this ideal, cutting SNAP, ripping away health care, terminating Gateway, we here in New Jersey are bound to fight for a different future for our children. We see how clearly important liberty is. We know that no one in our great state is safe when our neighbors are targeted, ignoring the law and the Constitution. But prosperity is equally essential. Liberty alone is not enough if the government makes it impossible for you to feed your family, to get a good education, or to get a good job. So in this country, that shouldn't be too much to ask. But right now, all of it seems at risk. Governors have never mattered more. And in this state, I am determined to build prosperity for all of our citizens. And I've heard from thousands of you about what liberty and prosperity mean to you, what it's going to take for your family to thrive. So I hear you, Newark. I'm going to work with communities from the ground up so all of our neighbors thrive. I hear you, Sham, so I'm going to declare a state of emergency on day one to drive down your utility costs. I hear you, Westfield, so I'm going to make sure our kids are safe online and schools have the resources they need to address the mental health crisis. I hear you, Jersey City, so I'm going to hold government accountable, balancing individual liberty with collective responsibility, ensuring people are safe, healthy, educated, and free to pursue their dreams. I hear you, New Jersey. Good government doesn't just manage problems, it solves them. So I'm going to continue to listen and work with you to move our state forward, because I have learned so much as I've traveled our state. Our innovations, our businesses, our inventors and entrepreneurs have amazed me, but it's the people that have left the biggest mark, especially those who are fighting for prosperity for their entire communities. I was moved during my block walk in Trenton with Shanique as she spoke so passionately about the promise of her city and her neighbors despite the challenges. I love the group of young men from Monroe who've been hard at work on this campaign. They want a seat at the table, and they're ready to fight for their future. The little girls who come up to me to say that they're going to be a governor or they're going to be a president. It reminds me of my own belief that anything was possible. Akeem's team, who worked their butts off knocked over 60,000 doors. Akeem told me these are not the kids who will succeed in Trump's vision of this country, but they will in mine. The men and women in labor. Union jobs at a time when our economy is set up to make it harder and harder for working people. You know what? They don't just fight for their brothers and sisters in labor. They fight for all of us. For working families everywhere, so everyone has a shot. So thank you. Thank you to each and every person here tonight and across the state who's worked hard over the last year. Thanks to the thousands of volunteers who made millions of calls, texts, and canvases, to everyone who's ready to stand and demand a better future for our kids and our families. To my running mate, Dr. Dale Caldwell. You've already served our state so well, and I'm proud to have you by my side as we embark upon this new chapter for New Jersey. To my team, who put together a campaign the likes of this state has never seen, and helped in our efforts to create a great future for New Jersey. And thanks to my family, who put up with missed soccer games, lacrosse games, football games, volleyball games, swim meets, and rugby games, all to put up with this, so thank you. And a special thanks to my husband, Jason. Through 4 kids, 2 dogs, a hamster, numerous goldfish, 5 campaigns, an insurrection, and 2 impeachments, you have been a truly amazing partner. So thank you to everyone who's joined me in fighting for a better future. I know these are tough times. I know not everyone voted for me, but I'm working for everyone. Every single one of you. When we all do better, we all do better. So tomorrow begins a new day. And at each new day in New Jersey, the sun rises over the Statue of Liberty, a daily reminder of her promise. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. She declares that her lamp lights the path to the golden door. That golden door is New Jersey. It always has been. And that expectation is well deserved, especially after this election, where we chose, we're going to follow Lady Liberty's beacon. We're not going to give in to our darker impulses. Here in New Jersey, we know that this nation has not ever been, nor will it ever be, ruled by kings. We take oaths to a constitution, not a king. We've chosen liberty, the very foundation of democracy, and we've chosen prosperity necessary to create opportunity for all. So New Jersey, to quote the boss, the future is now. Roll up your sleeves, let your passion flow. The country we carry in our hearts is waiting. Thank you, New Jersey.
When I am the
From the Associated Press, this is an Election Night 2025 update. Live from Washington, here is Meg Kennard.
Welcome back. Just to give you a recap of where we are at this hour, the Associated Press has declared Democrat Zoran Mamdani the winner of the New York City mayor's race. You've been seeing on your screen images coming into us from his election night headquarters there in New York. And we are now going to go there with AP correspondent Philip Crowther to give us a sense of what it's like on the ground as we wait for Mamdani to make remarks. Philip?
Yeah, and you can of course see the contrast right now in the boxes you have on your screen. One event, that's the one where I'm at, this is Zoran Mamdani's election night party, is lively. There's obviously a celebratory atmosphere. There are occasional shouts of joy here. Maybe when a leading Democratic politician walks around, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the congresswoman from New York, she is here, for example. David Hogg, vice president of the Democratic National Committee, is here as well. These are people who right now are giving interviews to the media, a huge number of media representatives here as well. So a very lively scene here in downtown Brooklyn. Very different in Manhattan. You can see those images right now as well. From Mr. Cuomo's headquarters, his election night party. Not that much of a party, of course, right now. Expectedly, the former governor of New York State, who ran in the Democratic primary against Zoran Mamdani and lost, and then ran again tonight in the mayoral election as an independent. Andrew Cuomo goes out of this race for mayor of New York as one of the losers, of course, along with Curtis Sliwa. He was the Republican candidate for mayor of New York City. He has already given his speech once it became clear that he was not going to win this election. That, of course, would have been an incredibly big surprise. What we are now waiting for here in downtown Brooklyn is, of course, the victory speech by Zoran Mamdani, the 34-year-old member of the New York State Assembly, who once upon a time, not that long ago, was definitely not the favorite to win this race and was very much an outsider. He has sprung a huge surprise. When you go back just a few months, the Democratic Party primary was in June, and just before that, well, pretty much no one gave him a chance of even becoming the candidate for the Democratic Party. Well, we now expect to see him on stage relatively soon to give his victory speech. As I mentioned, some stars of the left wing, if you will, of the Democratic Party are here. A big reaction certainly here for the likes of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Remember that she campaigned with Zoran Mamdani along with Senator of Vermont Bernie Sanders. These two of the big supporters of Zoran Mamdani, both of course also describe themselves, as does Mamdani, they describe themselves as democratic socialists. We again are hearing some shouts of celebration here in the room. Maybe that is an indication that we're getting a little bit closer to the speech by Zoran Mamdani. I can tell you at this point that we have not been given any indication by the campaign exactly when he will be taking the stage. What we did have, though, was a very early race call by the Associated Press, around 45 minutes after polls closed here in New York City at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. That is when it became official that Zoran Mamdani was going to become the next mayor of New York City. He will be inaugurated in January. And the call came so early, in fact, that quite a few of his supporters who had been lining up outside to get into this venue hadn't entered yet. They entered to the news that their favorite candidate was going to become the next mayor of New York City. Generally, though, there is very much a celebratory atmosphere, not just here at the headquarters for Zoran Mamdani, but also in Democratic Party circles right now, with those two victories in the race for the governorship in Virginia and in New Jersey, and obviously here, the victory for Zoran Mamdani. Those are three very high-profile Democratic wins tonight here. Of course, for Zoran Mamdani, it's not a surprise that a Democrat wins in New York City. But for someone who describes himself as a democratic socialist, it is certainly a surprise, and something also that, of course, brought the ire of President Donald Trump. The White House has already commented on this victory by Zoran Mamdani with a meme that says that Donald Trump is your president. So the reactions coming in thick and fast. The most important one, of course, is going to be that of the candidate himself. Again, we expect Zoran Mamdani to be on stage here in downtown Brooklyn very soon indeed, and we will, of course, bring that speech to you live as well.
Thank you, Philip. We really appreciate those updates from Mamdani's headquarters. And I wanted to ask you, what are you hearing about Andrew Cuomo and his performance tonight? Is there any indication of how supporters of his might be feeling? You mentioned his performance tonight as an independent candidate after losing the Democratic primary, but what do we expect to see or hear from him tonight?
Well, what you'd expect to hear, logically, would be a concession speech from the former governor of New York. That has not happened yet. You can see in the images, obviously, that Andrew Cuomo's election night party is not exactly a very festive affair, because at the end of the day, he will have lost twice to Zoran Mamdani. First of all in June in the Democratic Party primary, and then tonight again in the race for mayor of New York City. We don't yet know what exactly the difference will be, the percentage difference between the two candidates, but it looks like this is going to be a pretty handsome victory indeed for Zoran Mamdani. And I think that most likely is going to be chalked up as, well, an embarrassment for the former governor of New York, who of course has a lot of political clout, who has a long history in New York state politics, the type of history that Zoran Mamdani obviously does not have. We should also mention at this point that there was, of course, a candidate for the Republican Party, Curtis Sliwa, who has run for mayor of New York before and lost again here tonight. Not a surprise. Republicans don't tend to win when it comes to the mayor of New York City, but he again, it looks like, is not going to reach 10% of the vote. So for Andrew Cuomo, obviously a disappointing night, and I think it's time probably for analysts to look at whether this might mark the end of the political career of the former governor of New York. It is very possible. This was always seen as a generational battle between Zoran Mamdani, 34 years old, a new generation within the Democratic Party, and maybe the older guard represented here by the likes of Andrew Cuomo. We expect both of them to speak. We haven't heard from either yet. Zoran Mamdani and Andrew Cuomo, both of them will be giving their speeches, most likely within the next hour.
Thanks again, Philip. We will continue to keep images up from both campaign evening events. On your screen, you see Mamdani's campaign rally, and below that, Cuomo, where we do see the candidate taking the stage. We can bring you those comments. We also have live images with which we'll be leaving you, coming in from Minneapolis, which is electing a mayor tonight, as well as Detroit, where vote counting is occurring. But for now, let's listen in to former Governor Andrew Cuomo, who has lost the New York City mayoral race.
I love you too. I love you too. Let me acknowledge part of my special campaign team. We have from the right, Telef Lundaval, the new son-in-law, husband of Mariah. We have Mariah, Cara, Michaela. I want to thank our campaign chairman, Bill Mulrow, our great campaign manager, Greg Goldner. I want to thank Mayor Adams, who stepped out of the race to make us more competitive, and that was a very gracious thing to do. I want to thank Mayor Bloomberg, who gave us his support, Governor David Patterson, all the unions, and I am blessed. I am blessed to have the people in this room. You have been a phenomenal team. Great friends. You are superstars. Even more, you are New York patriots. And I am proud of you. This campaign was the right fight to wage. And I am proud of what we did and what we did together. This campaign was to contest the philosophies that are shaping the Democratic Party, the future of this city and the future of this country. And this coalition transcended normal partisan politics. It brought together Democrats and Republicans and independents, joined by the simple fact that their first allegiance is as citizens of New York City. Two million voters, the largest number in modern political history, cared enough to show up in a municipal election. And 42% voted for us on an independent line. That is the highest percentage in modern history. Ironically, it is just higher than when Mario Cuomo got 40% on an independent line against Ed Koch in 1977. It's also important to note that almost half of New Yorkers did not vote to support a government agenda that makes promises that we know cannot be met. We support an economy of jobs, of opportunity, of entrepreneurship. That's what New York is, and that's what New York must remain. We are a nation of laws, and we believe in law and order, and we need the police to keep society safe. We will not make the NYPD the enemy. We cherish our diversity, and we have no tolerance for discrimination of any kind by race, religion, sexual orientation, or creed. And we will not tolerate any behavior that fans the flames of anti-Semitism or diverse attacks. Our strength is our unity. Black, white, brown, Christian, Muslim, Jewish, Buddhist, we are one. We are the family of New York. We believe in interconnection and mutuality and codependence. And you attack one of us, you attack all of us. That is what it means to be a New Yorker. No one and nothing will ever divide us. And this campaign was necessary to make that point. A caution flag that we are heading down a dangerous, dangerous road. Well, we made that point, and they heard us, and we will hold them to it. Also, my friends, feel proud, because we accomplished the two important New York characteristics. We got up off the mat after the primary, and we made it a real race when the media had already commenced the coronation. And feel proud, because we fought our hearts out and we left it all on the field. Congratulations to Zoran Mamdani. That is not right. That is not right, and that is not us. That is not us. Tonight was their night, and as they start to transition to government, we will all help any way we can, because we need our New York City government to work. We want it to work for all New Yorkers, because our city is the greatest city in the world, and we will unite for New York City because we love New York City. And from the bottom of my heart, I thank each and every one of you. I love you for the fight you made, for the soul that you showed, and the example that you set. New York City heard us, and we will be the better for it. Thank you. God bless you.
Tribeca, right next to the narrow, but I'll be hood forever. I'm the new Sinatra.
You've been listening to a concession speech from former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo as he acknowledges that he is not the winner of tonight's New York City mayoral race, which the Associated Press has declared was won by Democrat Zoran Mamdani. So joining me again is Sagar to kind of talk about this race. And now that we've seen the concession speech from Andrew Cuomo, we're still waiting on Zoran Mamdani. But Cuomo obviously is a very well-known figure in New York politics. He had run as a Democrat in the primary, lost to Mamdani to begin with, then ran as an independent in the general. Talk to us a little bit about the tenor of this speech. It sounded like he was really being willing to work with Mamdani's administration there in New York City.
Cuomo's argument the whole time had been that he, as a former governor, had the experience to do this. Ready on day one. They literally had that sign at his event site. That he looks at a guy who is roughly half his age. Mamdani's 34, Cuomo's 67, beating him. Where else is there to go than to say, hey, maybe I can help the guy. Maybe I can help them, because the outstanding question right now is Mamdani ran this very ambitious campaign. How do you go about staffing that? How do you actually go about delivering on what some critics say are undeliverable promises that you've now made? Maybe he can get an ally in Andrew Cuomo, a man who ran the entire state and could have run the city. Cuomo, again, this is now his second loss to Mamdani. That has to sting as a man who held the highest elected office in that state. If he is in fact willing to help, one would think that would have to be a boon for the other people. He has the organizational skills. He has the veteran operatives around him that Mamdani may not. As a 34-year-old, the youngest mayor in more than a century, now running America's biggest city, you're going to need some help. And maybe he can find that now in Andrew Cuomo.
And it's not unusual for us to see that in various administrations at different levels for a candidate to come in with perhaps less executive experience, bringing in someone with more experience. I mean, I'm thinking about presidential administrations of both parties in the last couple of decades that have done exactly that when picking their vice presidents, for example. You
have to bring in the veteran hand, and it'll be interesting what that dynamic would look like and what role, if there is an official role, we're projecting way ahead now, that Andrew Cuomo may in fact play there.
Yeah, for somebody like Andrew Cuomo, who's been in politics in and around New York for a very long time, you'd wonder what that next step is. But perhaps he sees it as being some assistance to Zoran Mamdani, or maybe that's just a gracious concession of what you say on an election night when you have been bested by your opponent, not once, as you point out, but twice, and so now trying to move forward just in a classy way.
And this was a chance. I mean, this, for as stunning as Mamdani's ascent has been, remember Cuomo's spectacular fall 4 years ago as governor. This could have been a comeback for the ages. Clearly that fell apart, and like you said, who knows what comes next, but he did at least show the grace in the speech. He didn't go after him. It was a polite speech, for lack of a better phrase.
Sure. Yeah, thank you for that. We can now also go back to New York City, where we have Philip Crowther joining us again from Zoran Mamdani's campaign night headquarters. We've yet to hear from the candidate himself, but Philip, what are you seeing in those comments that we heard from former Governor Cuomo today?
Well, look, it's only a matter of time, I think, before we see Zoran Mamdani here on stage. his supporters, who are here in their droves and have now been celebrating since the race was called, they were able to watch Andrew Cuomo's concession speech. We are here in downtown Brooklyn. Andrew Cuomo spoke in Manhattan. A concession speech in which Andrew Cuomo, the former governor of New York, was able to silence the boos from the crowd when he congratulated Zoran Mamdani. I can tell you that here at Mamdani's election night party, there were plenty of boos as well once they saw that Andrew Cuomo, who was Mamdani's opponent not once but twice during the Democratic primary and today in the race for mayor of New York, when they saw that he was about to begin his concession speech. And the moment when he left the stage, when they saw that on camera, and again, they only saw that, but were not able to hear it. You can hear the loud music here at the venue. They essentially all waved him goodbye, happy to see the back of a man who twice tried to beat Zoran Mamdani and twice failed, after all, because it was in June when the Democratic Party held its primary, and that is when Andrew Cuomo was still a candidate for the Democratic Party and lost, surprisingly, to Zoran Mamdani. This time along, Cuomo appeared as an independent candidate, having lost the primary for the Democratic Party and lost again to Mr. Mamdani. We will have to wait and see exactly how large the difference is, the percentage difference between the two candidates in the end. But certainly this victory by Zoran Mamdani came quickly, and it came as a surprise, certainly the speed at which it came to a lot of people here in this room. It's very loud in here. You could probably make that out quite easily. A DJ playing music here right now while we expect Zoran Mamdani to appear on stage. And some of his biggest supporters, certainly over the last few weeks during campaigning, well, they are here in the room with him, or at least in the building with him, because Mamdani is still to appear on stage, of course. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is one of them, the congresswoman representing New York. She is here, and she has been making the rounds, giving all sorts of interviews. She, of course, campaigned together with Mamdani and Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont, two of the other politicians who consider themselves democratic socialists, just as Zoran Mamdani does as well. Everybody here knows what the promises were from Mamdani when he was to become mayor of New York City. He will be inaugurated in January. He has promised free childcare. He has promised free public buses. He has promised to freeze the rent on rent-controlled apartments in New York City. All of those considered very populist, but certainly also very popular messages with his supporters here in downtown Brooklyn. And they will certainly want to see those promises repeated here on stage when Mamdani does eventually give his victory speech. The way things go on these election nights, be it during a primary somewhere in the United States or be it during a presidential election, you tend to wait for the concession speech first, let a little bit of time elapse for people to get excited about their candidates coming on stage, and then he or she does, of course, do that. And that is exactly where we find ourselves now, awaiting Zoran Mamdani and his victory speech. When he does give it, and we haven't been given any indication from the campaign as to exactly how long that is going to take, we will, of course, come back here to New York and bring you that speech live.
So, Philip, you've mentioned some of the other Democratic Party celebrities. It's a word that I'm not throwing around really, other than well-known political figures. But it also seems like there's perhaps some influencers and an energy in the room. Given Zoran Mamdani's age, given the fact that he has run this very digitally focused campaign, can you kind of bring us there? I mean, we can hear the noise behind you and see the excited people, but kind of bring us into that room and let us know exactly, who else are you seeing there, and what are they relating to you in terms of what their takeaways are from this kind of campaign that Mamdani has put together?
Well, I can certainly tell you that it's a very diverse group of people who are here in the room to see Zoran Mamdani's speech. Probably a very fair reflection of the people who supported him in this campaign and ended up voting for him as well for mayor of New York City. When you take a walk around here at the Paramount Theater in downtown Brooklyn, you see a lot of those supporters embracing each other, celebrating, of course, as well. But you're absolutely right to talk about the influencers, people who Zoran Mamdani has been speaking to in what was a very clear, conscious decision on behalf of his campaign, a digital-first campaign, if you will. Those people that he has been speaking to on the campaign trail, well, they are here in downtown Brooklyn tonight, and they are broadcasting this event live to their viewership as well. It is a very modern, a very innovative campaign that we've seen from Zoran Mamdani. Of course, we'll have to wait and see how that translates into his position in City Hall when he will have to make true on all of those promises that I just enumerated that he has made. Again, a very celebratory atmosphere, of course, here. It is not a surprise to hear that, and a huge contrast to what we just saw during that concession speech from Andrew Cuomo, the former governor of New York State, now a defeated candidate in the New York City mayoral election as well. Certainly not a festive atmosphere in Manhattan where he was during his election night party tonight.
Thank you, Philip, for those continued updates from there in New York City. We will keep up on our screen images coming to us from Mamdani's election night campaign headquarters. We do expect to see and hear the candidate, but we don't have an exact time. As Philip knows, and as I know, having covered campaigns across the country, there is a lot of waiting. Even when you expect that there's a victorious candidate who's going to be coming out and talking to you, you don't have an exact idea of exactly when that will be. And so we will keep up on our screen those live images coming in from Mamdani's election night headquarters. But we are now at 11 p.m. on the East Coast, which means that we are at our final round of poll closings for this evening. Voting is coming to an end in California. Out on the West Coast, that is where we've been watching a redistricting-related balloting Proposition 50 that we'll be talking about here in just a moment. Voting is also ending in Washington State. But with me back is Sagar now. And Sagar, let's talk about Proposition 50, Prop 50 as it's been known kind of in that shorthand lingo among political watchers and how it's been campaigned on. But remind us, we talked about it at the beginning of the show. What is Prop 50 and how have we kind of seen this campaign around it coming together, and what do we think its effects could be for other places in our country?
So you have an independent commission in California that draws the district maps that upon which the House seats are allotted. Proposition 50 basically is asking voters to suspend the maps that that commission draws and replace them with maps that the Democrat-controlled state legislature has basically rejiggered to give more control to Democrats. Could wipe out as many as 5 GOP districts right now. When you look at the House map going into the midterms next year, Democrats only need to gain 3 seats to retake control of the House from Republicans. So we're talking about potentially 5 seats just in California when you only need 3 to retake. So you can see the battle lines drawn. This was in response to Republicans mounting similar efforts in Texas and elsewhere. Gavin Newsom, the California governor, said, you know what, this is going to be a good nationwide push to kind of blunt what he saw as President Trump trying to essentially steal these seats. It's going to be a big deal heading into the midterms if Prop 50 passes, and then it'll be really interesting to see what other states this may then ripple through. Are you going to have pressure from the president on down, maybe a GOP governor, whomever it might be, but this is going to play out a lot in coming months, and the stakes are just massive going into the midterms.
Yeah, I remember when I was out on the campaign trail, with Gavin Newsom earlier this year when he was talking about this same thing and now seeing it before voters. And now we can bring you a breaking alert that has just moved on the AP wire. The Associated Press has determined that voters in California have approved a U.S. House map designed to boost Democrats in 2026, aiming to blunt GOP changes elsewhere. That's exactly what Sagar and I were just talking about. So Sagar, let's go right back to it. We were right there at the poll close there in California where the AP was able to determine that these new maps were approved. As I was just noting before we had that breaking alert, I was out with Gavin Newsom, who's presumed to be one of the Democrats who will be campaigning for president here in a couple of years. And at that moment, he was talking about the situation in Texas and already talking about how he fully supports a slower, different sort of process than we see in California. but with legislatures considering these new maps. So it's kind of already a cascading effect, particularly now we see with this California decision today.
Yeah, and we'll see these cases come before state courts, perhaps even the Supreme Court, about just how legal it all is to do this mid-cycle. Keeping in mind the calculus for Republicans is the midterms of a presidential administration, 2 years in, that party usually takes a beating.
Right.
It's not going to take much for Republicans to lose that House majority, which obviously then puts a lot of the president's policies and agenda in turmoil. He's going to want to pull out all the stops to make sure that doesn't happen. And we've seen the sway that he has over Republicans right on down the line, from Congress into state houses, into governors' mansions. So the ripple effects of this could be pretty interesting to come. The impact for Gavin Newsom, whom we were talking about, this is a big win for him, right? Projected to be one of those folks who could run in 2028. He hasn't said much about it, but you know, this is a notch on the belt right there for him to be able to brag about getting this through. He had help from Barack Obama and some other prominent Democrats who also appeared in videos and talked about it on shows and things. So a big win for him, a big win for California Democrats, and I think now we're gonna see what happens down the line and what kind of response we may see from some Republican-led states as well.
Yeah, when we were talking earlier in the evening about former President Obama being involved in the gubernatorial contest that we've been following, but you're right, he did also opt to get involved in this redistricting conversation, which I think some people who follow politics were a little bit surprised by, since former President Obama has been relatively quiet and hasn't been as vocal in terms of not just electoral politics, but also the greater issues. But I guess at this point, he has decided to wade into a few different issues, and redistricting being one of them, saying that he supported the way that California was doing it. So not necessarily every method that a state could choose in terms of adding or changing their maps, but at least he was also giving not even a tacit stamp of approval. I want to just interrupt myself to point out that on your screen, you are now seeing new images coming into us from California in the lower left quadrant. That is where we expect California Governor Gavin Newsom to be holding a news conference on Prop 50, which we've just been discussing. And there is also some movement in the upper right quadrant. That is where we are awaiting New York City mayoral race victor Zoran Mamdani to address the supporters at his campaign rally there in Brooklyn. We've been talking all night with our correspondent there on the scene, but we do see someone at the podium now, so we do expect that we'll be hearing from the candidate himself here shortly. So we'll keep our eyes on that on the screen and certainly bring you Zoran Mamdani's comments as soon as they begin. So, Sagar, thank you for this analysis that we've been discussing about these redistricting vote that we've seen tonight in California and the other places where we've seen it happening. But there are no other states that are at that same stage in terms of having what they've been doing in California. At least there's legislative debates, right? But nothing that's actually before voters.
Nothing that's come to fruition like this, that has been presented to voters in and of itself, standalone, in a special election, that has gotten anywhere near this type of, I mean, Barack Obama's 30-second video pushing for it a month ago, you know, raced through social media. So, you know, they brought out the star power for that, and getting back to what you said about former President Obama, relatively low-key, you know, kind of playing post-presidency like George W. Bush has, not getting involved, not speaking out about a whole lot of things, unlike Donald Trump for those 4 years, very much like Joe Biden now. But I mean, to give you a sense of what Obama has been like lately, he even pulled out one of the old greats when he was campaigning over the weekend in the governor's races: "Don't boo, vote." And the place went nuts, right? Vintage 2008, 2012 Barack Obama trying to get Democrats energized again, and I think we're going to see a whole lot more of that. What was that math again?
364 days.
364 days till the midterms, and we'll be back and do it all again.
Thank you. We'll set our calendars and set our clocks now. We are going to return you to that live video that we've been talking about, coming in from Zoran Mamdani's campaign election rally this evening. So we will leave you with those live images and be back with you soon.
to work with you, learn from you, and support you as you have faced unprecedented scrutiny and at times ugliness and threats from our opponents. You have built a historic campaign, so please give them all a round of applause. And please join me in celebrating the person who has been Zoran's right hand from day one, whose deep commitment to our movement and care for our people has infused every part of this campaign from top to bottom, and without whom we would not be here tonight, Elvis Church. With grace, curiosity, good humor, and thoughtfulness. And this race has been difficult. He has been the subject of attacks and threats, but he has truly risen above it all to give us hope. So please join me in giving Zoran, our friend, a round of applause. And there are too many supporters to name, so I want to speak to everyone directly. Please raise your hand if you have given to this campaign, whether that is time, labor, knocking a door, hosting an event, creating art. And if you are one of the tens of thousands, this is beautiful, and if you are one of the tens of thousands of people who contributed but cannot be with us tonight, this is for you as well. You have made history. You set unreachable goals and then exceeded them. You believed in this city and believed in each other. And you achieved something that people will speak of for decades to come. You led with kindness and compassion. And most importantly, during a time of despair and rising fascism, you decided to fight for someone that you don't know. So thank you. Friends, the scope of this campaign was truly unprecedented. We had hundreds of thousands of conversations with our neighbors and trained leaders who will help us deliver our agenda for the next 4 years. But this record-breaking program did not come out of nowhere. It was the product of years of organizing and leadership development by New York City DSA and so many of our movement partners. You have this person to thank. She is caring, wise, and deeply committed to our movement. And I am sure she is backstage losing her mind at being called out like this. But I need everyone here to please join me in giving her the longest and loudest round of applause, our organizing director, Tasha.
Thank you. This is very exciting. Thank you, everyone. I'm Tasha, and I've had the honor of being the field director on this campaign. I first crossed paths with Zoran in 2017 on a city council campaign for Qadr al-Yatim in Bay Ridge. Zoran was the paid canvas manager, and I was volunteering on the campaign as a member of New York City Democratic Socialists of America. I don't think that we could ever have imagined that 8 years later, we would be here on election night for a mayoral campaign 104,000 volunteers strong. 104,000 volunteers. We love numbers, we love metrics, but I want to talk first about what's behind those numbers. Every number is, in a way, an act of bravery. Door knocking is not the easiest thing. For many, including myself, it takes a moment of bravery at the beginning, asking a stranger something about their lives and sharing something about yours. Sharing what you want to see in the world, it can be daunting. Thousands of people did it. And every time, every volunteer went to a door and talked to a stranger, they offered their vision to that stranger and invited that stranger to be a part of shaping their vision. We love strangers. Every door knock and every phone call is a statement of belief that politics is for all of us. This campaign and this city is all of ours to shape. I also want to say something about field leads. All of our canvases, for those who don't know, all of our canvases have been led by volunteers we call field leads. Many of them are here. Most led a shift every week, and some led a shift every week since December. And every time they led a canvass, and they were the ones welcoming new volunteers into our movement. They were the ones who helped inspire folks coming out to canvass for the first time. Without those 700 people who chose to step into leadership in an uncertain moment and try something new and scary, this field operation at this scale would not have happened. Those 700 people prove that leadership isn't about having all of the answers, it's about the willingness to step into the unknown and inspire others to imagine something better. So here are the numbers. Over 104,000 volunteers made over 4.4 million calls. At around noon today, a volunteer knocked our 3 millionth door. Over 700 field leads have led over 5,700 canvasses in 243 neighborhoods. 6,568 voters signed up to volunteer on the spot when they were canvassed by somebody. 8,389 voters signed up to volunteer when they were asked by a phone banker. These are unprecedented numbers. The bravery that you all have shown, that this field operation carried across all 5 boroughs, is going to transform our city. What all 100,400 of us have accomplished has rewritten the possibilities of mass democratic action. And it doesn't stop tonight. We all know that we won't stop at electing Zoran. We will continue to fight to bring the affordable of New York City to life. I am so excited to do that with all of you. And now I'm so honored to introduce the person you've been waiting to hear. We've worked for many years to bring about change in New York City that it so urgently needs. He's been a friend, and he is the next mayor of the greatest city on earth, Zoran Mamdani.
Thank you, my friends. The sun may have set over our city this evening, but as Eugene Debs once said, I can see the dawn of a better day for humanity. For as long as we can remember, the working people of New York have been told by the wealthy and the well-connected that power does not belong in their hands. Fingers bruised from lifting boxes on the warehouse floor, palms calloused from delivery bike handlebars, knuckles scarred with kitchen burns. These are not hands that have been allowed to hold power. And yet, over the last 12 months, you have dared to reach for something greater. Tonight, against all odds, we have grasped it. The future is in our hands. My friends, we have toppled a political dynasty. I wish Andrew Cuomo only the best in private life. But let tonight be the final time I utter his name as we turn the page on a politics that abandons the many and answers only to the few. New York, tonight you have delivered a mandate for change, a mandate for a new kind of politics, a mandate for a city we can afford, and a mandate for a government that delivers exactly that. On January 1st, I will be sworn in as the mayor of New York City. And that is because of you. So before I say anything else, I must say this. Thank you. Thank you to the next generation of New Yorkers who refused to accept that the promise of a better future was a relic of the past. You showed that when politics speaks to you without condescension,